Okay, so we are looking at formulas for area and perimeter. I want you to go ahead and after you listen to these directions, pause the video and go get your materials, okay? So go get yourself a pencil or something erasable to write with and maybe a highlighter if you have one, but definitely go get the volume 1 that you picked back up from this school and find module 9.1. And we're looking at page 349. It's the first 2 pages of that lesson, okay? So it's 349, take that out, and 351. If you want to leave them in your book, that's fine too, but that's what we've got, okay? So pause your video and go grab your things and come back, okay? Push play when you're ready. The question is, how can you use formulas to find the area and perimeter of shapes? Now, this is something that you've had before. You had this in 3rd and 4th grade. Formulas, though, this is an awesome word. You will be using this word for the rest of your math career. We've talked about these in class, but a formula is an equation that expresses a mathematical rule. All right? It's like, I always tell kids, it's like a recipe for a math problem. If you know the recipe, you're going to solve it, you're going to get it, and it's going to be so easy for you. Okay, you can use formulas to find the perimeter and area of rectangles. And remember, when we say rectangles, just like we learned about in our quadrilateral section, a square is a special type of rectangle. So this does include squares. And if you want to go ahead and pause again, but go ahead and grab, if you have it with you, your 5th grade math chart that might be in your notebook still. If you have that, remember there are 2 sides to it. This is the one we're looking at right here. We're not focused on volume right now, but right here we've got perimeter of square. There's a formula. We've got perimeter of a rectangle, and then we have area of squares and rectangles, and these are your formulas for those. Okay, so you can go ahead and grab those, and these are the formulas. So give yourself a second if you have these. Go grab them because we always need to learn how to use our reference materials. It's almost like having a cheat sheet, all right? So go grab those and we'll get started again. A lot of us are home and, doing projects and things, and so this might have come up while you've been at home. Y'all might be building something and you need to know the difference between perimeter and area. My next door neighbor has built a whole lot of garden boxes, and that's definitely going to be some perimeter and area. Okay, so math is everywhere, and this is one of those concepts that you will use your whole life. Okay, so it says Lloyd is planting a rectangular garden that measures, and first of all, we need to know the shape. That's a big clue when you're looking at and thinking of geometry and measurement. Okay, Lloyd is planting a rectangular garden that measures 40 feet by 24 feet. He wants to put a fence. Now a fence, remember, it goes around. A fence around it to protect his vegetables from rabbits. Okay, so we need to ask this question. How many feet of fencing does he need? Okay, so before we look at all of this, let's go ahead and take a second in this white space right here to draw a picture. Guys, it's super important. I know all of your math teachers have said it all year long. Draw a picture. It's incredibly important to get a picture in your mind about what's going on in math. Okay, so it did say rectangular garden, so let's just draw a rectangle. All right, and it says it measures 40 feet by 24 feet. So clearly this side is your longer side, so I'm going to go ahead and label that 40 feet. Opposite sides are equal on a rectangle, 40 feet, so I can label both of those sides. And what does that mean? That means from here to here, it's 40 feet. That is the length of that side, 40 from here to here. So I would need 40 feet of fence from here to here. I'd need 40 feet of fence from here to here, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and label the other side. It says by 24 feet, so obviously these are the only ones left. So from here to here is 24 feet, and from here to here is 24 feet. It's always helpful to label everything, guys. A lot of mistakes happen with area and perimeter because of labeling and maybe not visualizing what's actually taking place. Okay, So if we think about this, it says how many feet of fencing does he need? Even without the formula, you could walk through it and say, okay, I'm gonna need 40 this direction plus another 24 feet plus another 24 feet plus, or excuse me, 40 feet plus another 24 feet. So you can see that if you just walk around it, you're going to be adding these distances together, and you can find perimeter that way. That would be a great way to do it. As this shows, it says P for perimeter. That's what formulas do. It's called a variable. It's an unknown number that's labeled with a letter. So P is for perimeter. P equals, that is an L, that is not a 1. It says L plus W plus L plus W, and that's what we did. We said L, which is length plus width plus length plus width. All right, and that's a great formula for that. Okay, with a lot of other shapes like triangles, you can just add the sides, you know, length plus length plus length. All right, so here it tells you what the codes are for that. P is perimeter, L is length, W is width. So let's go ahead and fill in these blanks. Let's just walk through it just like we did. 24 plus 40 plus 24. It says replace the unknowns with the lengths and the widths, which is what we did. So if you add all those together, why don't you go ahead and do that real quick and then check your answer. So pause, add, and check. 128. Okay, what I did is I grouped the lengths together. I said 40 and 40. That's an easy add. That's 40 plus 40 is 80. I added the widths, which is 24 plus 24, 48, and then I put those together and combined them to get 128. So the perimeter is 128 feet, so Lloyd needs 128 feet of fencing. Great, perfect application for real life. All right, so that's what perimeter is. Perimeter, remember, I always told my kids, perimeter plus, add all the sides. Okay, perimeter, we perimeter. So if we look at the word perimeter, a little clue would be the word rim. So like the rim of a glass, for instance. Okay, here's one of my coffee mugs, which I love, filled with amazing, colorful, giant paper clips. The rim of a glass is the outside. Of course, that's a circle. It's not a rectangle, and that's a completely different show. That's called circumference. But anyway, the rim of something is the outside edge. So if I had my eyeglasses case, I could open that up and I could look at the rim of this, okay? That would be the outside edges. So I could measure that and see the distance around, all right? So that's what perimeter is. Okay, so then we talk about area. Now, if you talk about area, if you think about when you're at school, okay? So close your eyes and think about when you're at school and you have your desk. So I'll draw a picture of the top of your desk, all right? So sometimes your neighbor puts their little elbow on your desk and it gets on your nerves, right? I think all of you are probably giggling right now. You can remember how annoying that might be. Okay, but you might even say, hey, this is my area. Well, yeah, this is your area. An area is this whole space, okay? So for instance, think of this as a rug on the floor. That's why they call rugs area rugs, because it covers that space. So if we think about Lloyd and his garden, the area would actually be all of this soil and the plants and everything that's inside this space. That's his area for his garden. My dog's barking. I don't know if you can hear. But like the rug, it covers a certain amount of space and it's a covering. So like if we had some fringe on the rug, for instance, if this was a rug, this would be a length measurement, but everything inside is area and it's measured in square units. So that's the difference between perimeter and area, okay? So try to keep that in mind. All right, so it says use a formula to find the area. And again, if you take out your math chart, you have those things right here. You have perimeter and you have area, and those formulas are there for you, but they are here too. Okay, so your area, which is area, L, again, that's not a 1, that's an L. L is your length, and W is your width. So let's go ahead and use the example up here. It says Lloyd, the area of Lloyd's garden is blank square feet. So we're going to find the area now of his garden. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite those numbers. Remember, the lengths were 40 and the widths were 24. So we want to find out how much space is inside in square units. Okay, so we're going to replace the unknown numbers with the length and width. So here's the length again, and these are our widths. Again, we're just using the exact same measurements that we did up here, the same labels. I probably should have drawn my rectangle a little bit longer, but I think you get the idea. Okay, so our length is 40 and our width is 24. You literally just pluck that number off the page and put it where it belongs. It's like a puzzle. It's really, really easy, guys, I promise. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and take a second to recall how to multiply 2-digit by 2-digit numbers. Remember, that's a 0, so you could use that hangout 0 trick and put 24 on top and put times 40. Okay, and then just leave your 0, because remember, that's a placeholder. Anytime you multiply by tens, Sophie, shh, hush. Sorry, my dog, she's chasing birds. Let me go close the door. Okay, so let's look at this. Remember, this is a placeholder 0. Okay, so you could just leave it. When we're multiplying by tens, you might have already gotten that from the video, but when you're multiplying by tens, that's simply a placeholder. Remember, that's times 10, you're going to go to the left in the place value chart, okay? It's a greater place value position. Okay, so just leave that 0. You have 4 times 4, which is 16, and then 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. Now, if you multiplied this regularly, okay, just traditional multiplication, if you do 40 times 24, okay, 0 times 4, we have to remember how to do this though. So let's go ahead and go through it real quick. First, we will multiply the top factor times the ones place or the lowest value place position. 0 times 4 is 0. That would be 16. There's no other place to carry it, so you write that. Okay, we're finished, so mark your 0, mark your 0. Now what we're doing, this is our placeholder. Remember, you have to remember your placeholders in multiplication, okay? Because now we're actually multiplying 40 times 20. It's the value of this 2. It's not just 40 times 2. That's how we solve it, but we have to put that 0 down there to hold that spot and make that place value correct. Okay, so 0 times 2 is 0. 4 times 2 is 8. So let's see if we get that same answer. 0 plus 0 is 0. Then you have your 6. 8 plus 1 is 9. Yes, we absolutely do. We get the same answer. So more than one way to solve a problem always. Okay, so your area is 960, and we need to write square feet, because remember, area is measured in square units. What that means is if you had 960 actual squares that measured 1 foot on each side, okay, imagine that, all right, you would have to have 960 of those and lay them edge to edge all throughout this space. That's a lot of square feet, so that's pretty cool, right? Okay, it's a totally different measurement than perimeter, okay? So Lloyd would only need 128 length feet, okay, lengthwise feet of fence, but he would need 960 square feet of soil coverage or grass, whatever he's doing inside this garden, okay? All right, so let's try one more thing. It says you can also use the formula P. Okay, remember, P is perimeter, so we're talking about perimeter, equals 2L. That's an L. Remember, it's not a 1, it's an L. 2L plus 2W to find the perimeter. And remember, I know your math teachers have talked to you about this during the year. Anytime you have a number next to a letter, you're going to be multiplying. So this would be 2 times length plus 2 times the width, 2 groups of width. And isn't that what we did? Okay, and that's what they're showing long ways out here. 2 groups of L would be 40 and 40. And isn't that what we did when we added those together in perimeter up at the top? Okay, so it'd be 2 groups of 40. That's what this plus this is. Remember, we're switching back to perimeter. We're not talking about area anymore. We've switched back to perimeter. Okay, and then we're going to put that with 2 groups of the width, which is 2 times 24. Replace the unknowns with the length and width, and that's what we just did. So again, if we have 2 times 40, we know that's 80. And if we have 2 groups of 24, that's going to be 48. And we already solved that up here, right here. Isn't that 2 groups of 40? Yes, that's 2 times 40. Isn't that 2 groups of 24? Yes, that's 48. And then all you have to do is put those together again, and we'd still come up with 128 square feet. Or excuse me, feet, linear feet. All right. Okay, let's turn the page, flip it over. We're going to look at an irregular shape, okay? If it says you can find the area of complex figures by separating them into 2 or more similar shapes. Now, I'm sure that you can look at this figure and see that we could separate this in 2 different ways. We could separate this into 2 smaller rectangles that way, or we could separate these figures into 2 rectangles this way, okay, ignoring that. All right, either way, you can always separate these and use smaller rectangle. So here we have a shape, and here we have a shape. We could find these 2 areas separately and then put them together. All right, so let's do that. It says find the area of the rectangle, okay, and then find the area of the square. And that's exactly what they wanted us to do, was draw this line here, because as you can see, if this is 3 meters, this side right here from here to here is exactly 3 meters. And this side is exactly 3 meters from here to here. We know that opposite sides are equal in a rectangle, and a square is a special type of rectangle. This figure right here is a perfect square. So we could label this from here to here would be 3 meters. And from here to here, just remember, you're thinking of this as a completely separate shape. Okay, we've taken if this was a cake, we've taken a knife and split them, okay? So we have 3 meters from here to here. So let's think of this as a separate shape. We could even pull it down here and think of it as being cut off. 3 meters by 3 meters, labeling it all around, okay? And then we could take this and separate it and say 5 meters, 4 meters. Remember, opposite sides are equal, so let's go ahead and label it. We're thinking of these, again, as 2 completely separate shapes now that we've pulled apart, and we can put them back together to add them. Sophie, good grief, child. Oh, my dog is very high maintenance today. Okay, lever. Okay, so let's work on this first shape. It says find the area of the rectangle, and that's what this is. Okay, so again, it says A equals L times W, and what that means is length times width. So here we have our length, and this could be our width. All you have to do, again, is just replace those values. Your length is 5. We're going to multiply that by our width. Our width is 4, and that's a simple calculation. I know you know that. Let's count by 5s 4 times. We have 5, 10, 15, 20. So that's going to be 20. The area of the rectangle is 20 square meters. All right, so then, let's go ahead and label that. We could say 20 square meters. And then we have this shape to put with it. Find the area of the square. Now, if you want to, you can look at it's a good practice to do that. We're looking again at area. Area of a square, since both the sides are exactly the same, area equals side times side. So what that means is side times side. They're the same measurement. So you could say this is length, this is width. It doesn't matter. but it's just going to be 3 times 3. So area equals side times side. Each side is the same measurement, so you're just going to say 3 times 3 here in this case. So it is going to be 9. The area of the square is 9 square meters. Okay, so we could label that. And then all you have to do is add those two measurements together, because remember we pulled them apart. We need to combine them to see how many actual squares would go in this whole entire figure combined. So we have 20 is our first area, 9 is our second area, and 20 plus 9 is 29. So the area of the complex figure would be 29 square meters. That's kind of an extension. You're really asked to be able to find the area and perimeter of rectangles and squares. Oh, pardon me, I had this down so you couldn't see it. I apologize, but there you go. All right, so let's go ahead and work on this share and show. What I want you to do is I want you to pause the video and see if you can solve these, and then we'll check over it when you're finished. Okay. Hey guys, I had some technical difficulties. I had to figure out a whole lot of stuff and figure out how to get my microphone working again. Okay, so now find the perimeter of these squares. So at the last time, or at the last point where we stopped, I wanted y'all to go ahead and solve this problem. So let's check it. Perimeter, again, if you get your math chart out, perimeter, you can use either one of these formulas. I mean, you can, well, it doesn't show it, but you could also say P equals L plus W plus L plus W. You could just add all the sides, all right? Or we could do it the 5th grade way, and that's what I really want you to focus on. 2L means 2 groups of length. It's 2 times L plus 2 groups of width, all right? That's all that means. Again, anytime you have a number next to a letter, and this is going to be critical when you get to junior high, 2L means 2 times L. 2W means 2 times W, whatever W is. All right, so let's go ahead and figure this out. This is a square, so we could just add all those sides. You could say 14 plus 14 plus 14 plus 14. And couldn't we write that as a multiplication? We could say P equals 4 groups of 14, because that is absolutely correct. And that's why, look at that. It says P equals 4S. All right, so let's focus on that real quick. Perimeter equals 4 times S, which is side. S is side, so it's 4 groups of whatever that side length is. And that is 14 in this case. So 14 meters. Let's go ahead and multiply 14 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Carry that 1. 1 times 4 is 4 plus 1 is 5. So did you get 56 meters? And that is a linear, or a line, a length measurement. That would be 56 meters. It's not squares. It's just a linear measurement. All right, so then here it said find the area. Now again, we need to really pay attention to what the question is asking for. Let's write the formula. A equals, let's look, let's match it up. Area of a rectangle. A equals L times W. Let's write that down. L times W. Let's check your work. 25, is your length. So you just replace it with that value. That's all you do. Times, and then this is your width, is 12. So 25 is your L times W. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to stack these up using proper place value. 25 times 12, 5 times 2, because remember, we're multiplying 25 times 2 first. Okay, 5 times 2 is 10. That'd be 4 plus 1 is 5. Okay, now you cross off your work, mark your 0, mark your 0. There's your placeholder, because now what we're doing again is we're multiplying 25 times the value of the 1, which is 10. In this position, 1 means the value of 10. So we wrote our 0 here as our placeholder. 5 times 1 is 5. 2 times 1 is 2. Let's go ahead and add this together. 5 plus 5 is 10, and then we have 300. Wow. This would be 300 square feet. Okay, so we would need 300 of those 1 foot squares, 1 foot on each side. Squares would go all the way inside and cover this whole entire space. Okay, good job. If you got those answers, fantastic. All right, so I know we've taken a lot of time here today, but the reason is a lot of times this is one of the areas where kids have the most trouble. They interchange perimeter and area, so you have to be really careful what you're doing. There's two completely different types of measurements there. You use the same dimensions for the figure, but you're finding two completely different answers. Okay, so let's go ahead and do these real quick. Remember, you can always look at these questions, pause the video, double check yourself. If you were incorrect in your answer, go ahead and fix it. You really need to learn the difference between area and perimeter. Okay, so here we go. Tina's fixing a rectangular sign. So real important, there's our figure. That gives you a clue about what you're looking at. She plans to place metal trim. So trim, that's an important keyword around the side edges. Okay, so we know we're talking about edges here. We think it says the rectangle measures 32 inches by 9 inches. How much trim will Tina need? Okay, so just think about the word trim. All right, if you were looking at a frame, for instance, you're looking at those outside edges. So let's go ahead and draw a picture, guys. It's real important to draw a picture. Now this said it's 32 by 9. 32 is a much larger number than 9. So let's go ahead and write 9 inches on this side. Again, opposite sides are equal. This is not the prettiest rectangle in the world, but let's go ahead and label. Okay. This is the sign. So here's the metal trim. That's what is going around. There's the outer edges. That's your clue that you're talking about perimeter. Now, remember, this question did not say one word about perimeter or area. That's what your job is to do at this point, is to figure out what the question is asking you to find. Is it asking you to find the edges, or is it asking you to find what's inside? And in this case, you're going to have to know that it's talking about the edges, and that means perimeter. Okay, so this is a perimeter question, but it didn't tell you that. That's something you have to come up with on your own. So you really need to be thinking deeply and drawing pictures and thinking about what those words actually mean. Okay, so let's look at our math chart or in our notes and think. Okay, if we're looking at perimeter, this is most definitely a rectangle. It is not a square whatsoever. So let's go ahead. You could look at either one of these formulas. Okay, P equals L plus W plus L plus W. That would be more of a 4th grade, but that's okay. You can do that. Okay, always. But here we have P equals 2L plus 2W. Let's use that one. And I want you to write it inside the figure. P equals 2L plus 2W. All we have to do is replace what we already know. We do not know the perimeter. That's what we're being asked to find. But we do know the length. So let's say P equals 2 groups of length, which is 32 inches. Let's put that in parentheses, okay, because that belongs together. Plus 2 groups of width, which is 9. Again, put that in parentheses because those figures belong together. Okay, so we figure this out. 32 times 2 is 4. And 3 times 2 is 6. So you've got 64. Oh. And then we have 2 groups of 9, which is 18. And then we're just going to simply add these two measurements together. So we have 64 plus 18. And that would be 12, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so 82. So we walked all the way around. It would be 82 inches. And there is your answer. If you got 82, that's fantastic. You might have just gone ahead and added all 4 sides. Again, more than one way to work a problem. Okay, number 9. Okay, let's read it, and then you can pause it, solve it, and double check. A rectangle has a length. Again, that's a rectangle. Okay, so we could even go ahead and draw. Stop and draw. A rectangle has a length of 5 meters and a width of 4 meters. So let's go ahead and write 5 meters. 5 meters. Always draw your pictures and label. Which equation can you use to find the perimeter? So they don't actually want you to solve it. They just want you to find the equation that you would use to solve it. Okay, so let's see which one makes sense. Okay, if we said P equals, well, wait a minute, stop. I want you right now to think about what the formulas look like for perimeter. So grab your math chart. This is a great way to do this. You could double check your answers and make sure that you're right because we like to prove it. Okay, so perimeter of a rectangle, and that's what this is. So if we actually wrote the formulas, either one of these, okay, let's go ahead and do this because we have P equals L plus W plus L plus W. Okay, so they have values here. So if we know that this is the formula for perimeter, we could go ahead and fill it in. Okay, so let's see what this would be. Length would be 5 plus 4 plus 5 plus 4. Well, that doesn't look like anything here. But with addition, what can we do with our add-ins? That's commutative property where we can switch the numbers around. Could we say 4 plus 4 plus 5 plus 5? Would that mean the same thing? Absolutely. I'm really thinking that this one looks like the answer. What did they do here? They multiplied the length and width. And what is that? Is that perimeter or is that area? That's area. Okay. When we multiply length times width, that's an area formula, and that's not what we're doing. That's not what we're doing whatsoever. Okay, so that's not going to be it. This is going to be area. Okay, and that's not it. Okay, would we ever multiply opposite sides? I don't think we would ever do that. That's just weird. Okay, here we're adding all four sides. We're just grouping them a little bit differently. And then here, this happens a lot, okay? Kids know that they're supposed to be adding the sides, but they only add 2 of them. If you only add 2 sides, you're actually only adding the length of this part right here, possibly, okay, or here. And that's not the entire rectangle, so that's not complete, okay? So C is the correct answer. Let's put a little fluffy cloud. Okay, so good job. We're going to come back to this multi-step. Let's do our Texas test prep. Mai wants to tile the floor of her kitchen. It says each tile has an area. Each tile has an area of 1 square foot. The floor of her kitchen is 11 feet by 16 feet. And what that means, that gives you the dimensions of that rectangular figure. How many tiles does she need? Okay, so let's go ahead. First of all, we're going to highlight the question and draw. So let's go ahead and draw the rectangle. We can tell that it's a rectangle and not a square because these two measurements are in fact different. So let's look. We have 16 feet and we have 11 feet. So this is her kitchen. It's long and opposite sides are equal. We could go ahead and label the whole thing. But are we looking at perimeter or area? Well, this gives you the clue right here. And they're giving you what's going on inside by using square feet. So if we were actually to draw the rows and the columns, you would see that this is just simply a multiplication around 11 groups of 15. And that's how much space would be covered by this whole, all this tile, all right? So what are we looking for? Area. So again, let's take our math chart and A equals L times W. That's length times width. Let's write the formula. A equals length times width. All right, so let's replace our values. Area is what we're looking for. That value that we're looking for will remain a letter. The length is 16. The width is 11, and that's all you have to do. So let's go ahead and multiply 16 times 11. Again, if you want to pause the video and solve, you are just fine. We're solving 16 times 1, and that's easy. That's identity property. 16 times 1 is 16. We will mark our 0. Mark our 0. Let me erase this and get it out of the way. Okay, 11 feet. Okay, placeholder. Okay, again, 16 times 1 is 16. Let's add these values. We have 6, 7, and 1. So 176 squares he would need. If they are 1 square foot apiece, he would need exactly 176 tiles. Good job. I bet you got that. Okay, last one, guys. Sorry this video is so long, but again, we really need to know the difference. It's a big deal. Multi-step. Lana had an L-shaped piece of felt. Her mom cut it into 2 rectangles. This is like that irregular shape or that complex figure that we had on the previous page. Let's go ahead and draw that. If it's an L shape, looks like an L. Her mom cut it into 2 rectangles. It says 1, so we can just pretend. Let's cut it just like we did in that previous one. 1 rectangle measured 4 by 9. So I'm going to go ahead and write 4 by 9 because this is smaller and this is longer. And the other measured 4 by 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw this out. Okay, I'm just pretending I know that this smaller piece says what is the total area of the 2 rectangles. Now this actually does give us all the information that we need in order to find out our answer. So if we made a cut, that means that these 2 have now become separate pieces. Area equals length times width. Area equals length times width. And it gave us those dimensions that we needed. So we're good. We're golden. Area equals, we could say 9 times 4, which is 36. So the area of this section here is 36 square inches. Okay, so if we had all these little squares, just like on a multiplication chart, or excuse me, on a grid, we would have 9 groups of 4 little squares all inside. And then here we would have area equals 4 times 3. So the area of this little section here would be what? It's 12 square inches. Okay, so all we have to do now is put these values together, combine them, and we would get 36 plus 12. So if we had all these little squares, we'd have 36 squares, 12 squares here, and that would be 48 square inches. All right, friends, that's it. You did great. I'm glad you stuck with me. I hope you have a wonderful week this week.